Can you see the screen?
Yes.
I feel like I need
Well,
music.
yes, I love it. Welcome to the October Diner with the doctors, Van Laar. Please take it away. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's this is a topic that I think gets a lot of attention about this time of year, and I know it's of interest for many people. And I think some of this actually applies to everybody, not just folks who are dealing with Parkinson's. Um, and I think that there are, maybe you've heard a lot of tips and tricks. Hopefully, we have something new to share with you today. Maybe it's better just to at least hear them again. But wanted to go over some things that we think may be helpful in facing a lot of challenges that come with this time of year as we are hitting the holidays. That being said, please ask questions in between. This is always better if it's more of a conversation. So please let us know if you have any questions, and we'll make sure we have time at the end of this as well. Okay, we can get started. So I probably don't need to tell anyone in this room, but anytime there is more stress in the environment, Parkinson's symptoms get worse. And people will come and, patients will ask me, is this, it feels like there's a sudden change in how Parkinson's is feeling for people. And there's a concern that stress is actually making the Parkinson's worse over the long run, when in fact it's just a hopefully temporary reaction to the environment and the situation that you're in. And so, traditionally, what I would say to people is, like, if it's really a stress-induced change and that's why it's popping up, it's probably just the stress that you're going through. And the only way to really know is if you can remove that stress and just see if you can if you go back to where you were before with your symptoms. But specifically, people most often, if there's tremor and that's a big problem for you and you have more stress, it could even be the stress of standing in line and trying to get your credit card out of your wallet. Even that kind of stress will make symptoms a lot worse. Typically, it's tremor that will show up. It's the most visible. People from across the room can sometimes see it, and it doesn't take much stress to really kind of bring that tremor out. And so if you feel like there's a sudden, like in a couple of days, like all of a sudden tremor seems to be a lot worse, stress may be the cause of it. One of my favorite examples is someone who didn't know they had Parkinson's disease, and they were getting ready for their daughter's wedding. And it was some catastrophe in the morning, and just all the stress really amped up. And this patient said, "This is when I know I had Parkinson's disease. Like, all of a sudden I had this tremor." And it's just like this filter that stress just takes off and just allows these kind of symptoms to come through. So it's definitely can make everything worse. So other symptoms like the shuffling, the stiffness, the difficulty getting around, all of this can get worse with stress. As I said before, they should be temporary. By definition, if this is really just coming from stress and you take the stress away, it should also get better or go away. But as you can see here, sometimes medications alone won't really help the issue, because this is not being caused by really necessarily the Parkinson's. This is the stress making the Parkinson's just look worse. And so part of what we hope to do today, with this session, and hopefully you're hearing it from other places too, but the best way is to actually prevent this from, kind of this having the stress affect you in the first place. So the best way is, what are some of the strategies, some techniques that you can learn to help avoid this from kind of popping up from the beginning? So, honey, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So we're coming up on a major stressor for a lot of people, and that would be the holidays. Travel, going to see family and friends, going out to celebrations, just planning for those celebrations can bring people a lot of stress, and not just people dealing with mobility issues or Parkinson's disease. It's everybody. This is a stressful time of year, as much as it is supposed to be a very joyous time of year. And just the thought of having to go to social events and being around other people can be very stressful or even exhausting for people. And as mentioned at the last slide, the stressors from the holidays, just like any other stressors, can negatively impact the Parkinson's symptoms. And the real issue here is those symptoms worsening, and leading to risking you having what should be a joyous holiday event or occasion or travel. So what we're going to talk about today are just some travel tips and personal meditation tips that we can all use to help deal with the holiday stress. Because again, as mentioned previously, taking more meds is not necessarily the answer to this. Like the stress is making the symptoms worse, but it can also make the symptoms less responsive to the medications. Now, for people that do have an anxiety problem, or maybe you're already taking meds for depression, again, aside from your Parkinson's meds, meds like SSRIs, definitely taking more is not the answer. So what we're hoping to go through today are some non-medication tips, basically just thinking ahead, being mindful, can help reduce a lot of the stress that people feel during the holidays.
And I would say, if you already are coming into the holidays and you know there's maybe some depression or you're having some issues with anxiety, just know that too will be enhanced. And even just preventative, the care, talking to your neurologist, your doctors about maybe some concerns going into it. See if they have any other suggestions from a medication standpoint. But I think a lot of this, again, the idea here is just prevent as much as you can, or at least know that you're getting into it. Sometimes just being mindful of that can be helpful. Speaking of which, why don't you take this one too?
Yeah. So, yeah, we heard us say the word mindful a lot, and actually, mindfulness can do a lot to help alleviate the symptoms of stress. So mindfulness, when we say mindfulness, most people know the phrase, be mindful. But mindfulness really is, an active thing that you do with your mind and your body. It is the intentional awareness of your situation, of your surroundings. And not just being aware of your surroundings, not just being aware of what's coming down the road, but also don't put a label on those things. Just accept that that's going to happen and that it is what it is. Don't get yourself amped up that, oh, it's going to be awful, because now you've already made it awful by thinking that. So, approach these situations without judgment in mind. Just mindfulness is almost a kind of meditation, but it's like an active, purposeful meditation, trying to get your mind into a state of readiness without the fear and anxiety of what's coming. So there have been actually several studies on this with Parkinson's patients, two notable that we link at the end of the talk, that have shown that maintaining trained mindfulness can improve a lot of PD symptom severity, and in particular can significantly reduce the effects of anxiety and depression and stress in these kinds of situations. So, this is not medication, but it is training. It is training your brain and training yourself to just think ahead, think about where you are, think about what's going on, think about what your body's doing, and be prepared. And there are people that are qualified, experienced instructors in mindfulness and mindful meditation. And for some people, it may be beneficial to seek such professionals out to help train your mind.
And sometimes a lot of the anxiety comes from unknown and the future worry about things. And sometimes if you are trying to be mindful, which is like being in the moment and paying attention to like where you are at that time, it can help kind of quiet down that stress and the worry about things that have yet to be. So this is a lesson we could all use. I will be reminding us that on our holiday trip this year that we need to be mindful and be patient with each other, because it can just all kind of accumulate and get very stressful in the moment.
Absolutely.
We should take this one too.
Yeah, so the agenda for today is just some of the tips Amber and I have put together, other people have put together, specifically targeting, well, some of these are tips that were put together with people with Parkinson's in mind, but in general, they're just really good tips for dealing with travel and managing social events that any of us can use. But following these may help reduce a lot of the stress up front, so you don't have it when you go to travel or go to your holiday celebration. So we'll talk about maintaining schedules. We'll talk about some travel trips, whether it be by ground travel or flying, how to manage those social events. Because, whenever we travel for the holidays, it's not just to go to one place. It's usually to go to 4 or 5 or 6 places. And some of those places, of course, do involve family. So how can we manage visiting with family and making it less stressful?
So I'm going to start with keeping a schedule. And this is in general, especially if you have Parkinson's and a lot of other brain conditions, will always be true. The brain likes everything to be the same as much as you possibly can. It's really the changes that really can bring out the problems, like the neurologic issues. So even if we're talking migraines and headaches, it's the same thing. If you suddenly change the way you're eating, you're not drinking as much water as you did, you've got more stress, the sleep is messed up, those things even affect you if you've just got migraine. And so the goal here is to try and keep the brain on as even of a keel as you possibly can for as much as you can. Now, the great force working against this is life. Life is messy and it's hard. And so it is trying to kind of keep the calm and the stability. Is one way you can exert that control is just maintaining a routine. This ensures that and this goes everything from keeping your medicines the same. So if you're taking something every 3 hours, try to always keep it at 3 hours, even with travel. So that means making sure that you've got meds in your carry-on. That means making sure you've got enough medication for your travel. I mean, these really simple things. But it's also when you eat, again, because there's such a link with, how meds are, will impact you based off of what you have eaten. It's also important to try and keep the meal times pretty close to what you'd had before and eating the same things. That's going to be a big challenge during the holidays. But again, especially with protein being such an issue for the way that levodopa is absorbed, for example, the more you can kind of keep that routine on your travels, the better. And this one is really hard, I think, for most people, but keeping up with exercise. I really have always seen exercise as part of the treatment for patients with Parkinson's. And so oftentimes when you get out of you're out of home and out of your routine, exercise is one of the first things to go. I know I'm very guilty of that too. But the idea is, plan ahead and think like, well, how do I keep this up even while I'm away? And that may require calling or trying to plan so that you can keep this going. And then, yes, like what's next in the journey? So are you going to multiple places? Do you have a break? Are you building in time to recover or recuperate from what you may have just gone through or getting ready for the next one? The other big change here that can happen, especially if you're changing time zones, is sleep. So the sleep needs to be a priority because just like stress, sleep will impact everything with Parkinson's too. So make sure that you're blocking time and getting good enough rest and can get refreshed on every day because sleep will just it's a compounding consequences here without sleep and more stress. So routine. This is very, very important when we're talking about leaving home and getting outside of your normal day-to-day stuff. Let's go on to air travel. So this is stressful for everybody on a normal basis. When you throw in holiday travel and maybe some TSA restrictions and maybe there's some COVID. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of reasons why this is a very stressful event for pretty much everybody on a normal basis. And so with Parkinson's or other mobility issues, this is even further, it can be exacerbated even more. And just, I mean, I have to think about this too every time I go into an airport. It's just like you have to put on patience. It's going to be tough. Everyone's kind of on edge, and it'll be especially worse during the holidays. Just know to be patient. And so there's, I think, a few things. I'm sure many people are aware of these, but there's a few ways of trying to help ease the air travel burden that comes along. And so I guess the number one thing, as I just said, is just be patient. I mean, honestly, before I even walk out of the house to head to the airport, it's just like, okay, okay, we just know that it's going to be tough, and we need to just be patient. I think the other big point here for number two is don't be afraid to ask for help. This recently has been an issue for me. I'm on crutches. I went to an airport, and I'm not used to being, ushered around the airport, but I gotta tell you, it makes things so much easier just getting the help. This means you may actually have to call the airlines ahead of time. There are ways, even in apps, to let the airlines know that you might need extra assistance. If you want to plan on having a wheelchair or someone to actually take you to the gate, there are all that you can plan ahead of time. I've recently had to do this for myself, and so I figured out how to do this, at least for some airlines. And I got to say, it helps tremendously. Take some of that time pressure off. You need to get to the gate, you need to get to the plane. If you've got this planned ahead, and you make sure you give yourself enough extra time in getting to the airport earlier, this will take off a ton of stress if you just you've got plenty of time to get taking care of what you need to. One other tip that I think is really helpful, and I've done this at other times too, but you build some time on the other side of the trip so that you have a chance to recover, get your laundry done, get a chance to breathe, make sure that you've gotten some rest. So make sure you build in time on kind of both ends of the trip. Number four, I think, is self-explanatory. I think that this is pretty obvious. But dress comfortably. The airplanes are tight. The bathrooms are tiny. It's hard to maneuver and get around. To make sure that clothing and accessories, and if you need a walker or cane, make sure all of that is handy and available and something you could tolerate, for a day. So make sure that you're going and dress comfortably, and know that you'll be able to do that for the bulk of the trip. And it's interesting, I bring up the wheelchair again. This is something I really rallied against myself, but it just removes a lot of pressure. When you have that wheelchair reserved on top of having someone take the transportation away from you can have someone else rely on for that. When you are being attended by someone from the airport, you actually can fast track through the lanes quite a bit faster, and anyone traveling with you comes too. So this is a major advantage. You also get to board the plane earlier. So there's just a lot of reasons to even if you don't think you need the wheelchair, sometimes it helps just to do it. There are some perks that are totally worth taking advantage of if you can. And I mentioned this already too, but the medications, make sure you've got them on your carry-on. Don't pack everything in your checked luggage. It's got to be accessible. You got to be able to pull it out in a moment's notice. It also helps if you keep them in a separate bag. They're just ready to go. So you just pull them out in case someone from TSA wants to inspect them. If you have DBS or Duopa, any of these pumps or any other hardware that may be an issue, make sure you just got the cards or certificates on hand in case that comes up. Hopefully it's not too much of an issue. Other things to consider, and what you require some effort now, but TSA pre-check, clear. There's other ways of just kind of getting through easily and quickly. One other one I had seen is try to avoid the online check-in. Just go in person, talk to someone. Usually if they can help you. Make travel as easy as possible when you're flying by air. Do you want to take your interval?
Sure. So some people just flat out don't want to fly, and I get it. Everyone hates flying. Everyone hates the airport. The people at the airport hate the airport. So sometimes ground travel, and depending on how far you need to travel or where you need to travel, it may be more reasonable or more feasible, or just plain less stressful and anxiety inducing to travel by ground. And for most of us, this would mean driving or being driven somewhere. Some it may mean busing or taking the train, depending on where you're going. And these can be more relaxing. They tend to happen more on your own timetable or on a more flexible timetable, but they still come with major challenges that can affect your routine and can affect your activity. I mean, you're going to a plane, there's a lot of physical activity. You sit for 2-3 hours and then you're right back to physical activity. You're driving the same distance, you're going to be sitting in the car for hours and hours and hours. So again, there are things you can do to help mitigate some of this stress and some of this inactivity. And if you think ahead and plan ahead, this can, help make this more enjoyable, and you can have less stress and more good time when you get where you're going. Next slide. So the main thing is just like air travel. Plan your trips in advance. The difference here being you're not going to be beholden to the airline. So, you've got to plan where you're going to stop. Plan each stop along the way, plan your pit stops, build them in. Like if you have exercise at a given time of day, build in a stop where you can get out and stretch your legs. Just know each step of the way ahead of time, and it will, like if you have to stop overnight, go ahead and book a hotel room ahead of time so you're not looking for hotels on the road. But the main thing is just to try to keep to your normal schedule as best you can. Take your meds at the same times, keep up with your exercise schedule, try to stop for meals the same time you would normally be eating your meals at home. Just try to make it as close to your typical routine as you can so that your body feels like you're doing things at the normal time and the brain is still keeping time. Now, and also when it comes to taking medications, things like that, have, just like on the airplane where you would make sure you have medications in your underseat carry-on, keep those medications accessible. Don't pack them in a suitcase in the back of the car and then 2 hours down the road, oh no. Make sure that you've got what you need readily accessible for however long you're going to be in the car or on the bus or on the train. But the main schedule killer when it comes to travel like this is that your time, if you're traveling across multiple time zones, your time is changing much more slowly than it is by air travel. So you want to try to gradually move your schedule to match your time zone. Air travel, you're not given much choice. You're going to go from Eastern to Mountain Time in 3 hours. But at least you have the advantage and challenge of, moving your schedule to match the time zone as you drive through the time zones.
And I mean, it's, if you're going to be gone long enough where you may be adjusting to the other time, the idea is kind of shift things gradually with it versus just trying to keep on a strict schedule. I just generally try to avoid waking up or setting alarms in the middle of the night to take medication. And so that is something that can come up when you're switching, especially if you're going from East Coast to West Coast. But one of the tricks is just kind of gradually make that change. And again, it just depends. If you're gone for 2 weeks versus 3 days, that's a very different situation. Okay. Next. Go ahead.
So then you've gotten where you're going to. You've managed to deal with all the travel. You've kept your schedule pretty good. Now there's people. So once you get where you're going, now the social interactions start. That's why you were going where you're going. For some people, social events can be stressful, even if it is family and friends that you've known for years. Because if you're traveling to see them, chances are you haven't seen them in a while. And that could be stressful to people. So just with the tips with travel, you got to go into some of these situations with some both timing preparation, but also some mental preparation. This is where the mindfulness really comes into play, so that you can be prepared for what's to come. and be able to enjoy it rather than stressing out that the stress is making your symptoms worse. And then people are worried about your symptoms that are mounting because of the stress. And then it's just a vicious cycle.
It's I want to say this because sometimes with Parkinson's, that risk of like ruminating on like the anxiety, it comes with the territory sometimes, and so the best way is kind of just not let it get there in the first place, because it's much easier for the Parkinson's brain to kind of just get stuck in that kind of loop. And so when it comes to social events, and Victor just hit on this as well, if you're traveling, you may not have seen them in a while. In some cases, this means that your symptoms may look different. The way your Parkinson's looks to the world may be different than it was the last time you'd seen your family or friends. Just to know, sometimes it helps to have that initial call so that it's not kind of catch up before you go out there, so that there's no surprises. You've had that chance to discuss any things that may come up. But I think the other thing to think about is be very thoughtful about what events and parties that you want to attend. You don't have to go to everything. It's just like the holidays in general. There's a lot of joy, but it also comes with a lot of anxiety. There's also a fear of missing out or not being able to attend, and feeling isolated that way too. So it could be a double-edged sword. But again, I think reaching out to, if there's like family that is that you're attending this event with, and if you're a little bit worried, find someone that you trust, let them know about your concerns, see if there's ways of planning around it or prevention. Like, are there, can you identify someone that can help you out during the event or the party? I know this again applies to everybody during the holidays, but be thoughtful and careful with food and drink. Again, these are enjoy. I mean, that's the point, is to celebrate, right? But just know that this is going to have some potential issues with medications and other issues with Parkinson's. And at the end of the day, and I think this goes for everything, just give yourself a break. It's okay to say no. It's okay not to go to everything. It's okay to say yes. It's okay. But just give yourself some grace and a little bit of space to be able to enjoy it without feeling too stressed to keep up with these events. And then there's family on top of that. So as I was saying, same thing, especially with family, they're going to be probably watching every little thing. And again, if they haven't seen you in a while and you feel like things are different from the last time you were with your family, that alone can bring on a lot of stress with family visits. So again, I think going, having a preemptive call beforehand, kind of letting them know where you're at and what you're doing, medication wise, even, it can help to make sure that they come meet you where you're at. And so I put it here. I mean, just if they have questions, like, I think it would be good for them to know, like, your needs and things that you anticipate maybe coming up, especially if there's like new medication you're on or something like this. It's good to have had that dialogue well beforehand. And maybe they have suggestions that they could really help you with something. I mean, if it's just managing medications, you need certain sleeping arrangements, or you need you have problems getting to the bathroom. I mean, it just helps having that conversation and working around potential issues before you even get there. It's just, again, all this preventative care in a way. And I think this goes for everything we're talking about, but just be ready for the unexpected. So there are going to be challenges and demands if you have a lot of family in one place. Everyone's going to have their own needs, and so it's important for you to make sure that you keep your needs in mind. But it's also just hard to make it fit with everybody else in the room. And so, being flexible. I mean, this is with, saying yes or no to certain things, but also with your expectations of yourself. Be okay adjusting, what you expect to get out of the holidays and your event. At the end of the day, the goal here is to enjoy the time, enjoy the holidays, enjoy being with your family and friends, and not stressing or, having Parkinson's at the forefront of everything. So, would you take this one?
So yeah, being mindful, that's going to help you, and being mindful, planning ahead, being flexible to the extent that you can, staying on your routine when you otherwise, those are all going to be great ways for managing stress. But sometimes stress comes no matter what. And there are other ways of also managing stress in a non-prescription way while we're traveling and celebrating. And the number one that came up throughout this talk was exercise. If you're already doing exercise, maintain your regular exercise. It's the number one documented way in studies to help improve PD symptoms is regular exercise. Releases endorphins, it gets the body loosened up, it activates the neurons in your brain, helps keep everything healthy. It just, in study after study, 91% of participants say they see an improvement with their symptoms when they exercise regularly.
I would add is one reason why people will probably keep it up is because it helps. And most people who find benefit will continue just because they know it helps.
And in addition to that, just like mindfulness, exercise has been shown to have a positive effect on mood, even in stressful and anxious situations. We're not sure if that's because it's actually affecting stress or it's just making things easier by alleviating symptoms, therefore you have less stress. But again, exercise combined with this mindfulness state of mind and just having other things prepared and keeping to your routine can really help bring the stress meter way down. So yeah, when you're traveling, if you already have an exercise routine, keep to your routine, take the time, make the time, talk to your family, talk to your friends saying, I've got to, take this half hour at this time. Otherwise, let's plan our day, just to keep it up as you normally would. But also, this can be a time to increase opportunities for physical activity. So, don't shy away from those situations that can, like going for a hike with the family or going out shopping, if you feel up to it, of course, always. But again, exercise is a great way to deal with stress.
And quickly, like the benefits of exercise can
quickly,
be
that's
almost
yes.
immediate, which is unlike a lot of other types of treatment. So I cannot encourage exercise more.
And then we also have meditation. So meditation, most of us think of meditation, we think of, sitting with our hands up and saying Om a lot. But it really is a collection of techniques to help calm the mind, calm the body, be aware of yourself and your surroundings. One of the best ones is just sitting in a chair in a quiet room and listening to some relaxing music, whatever music floats your boat and helps you calm down. Yoga is another one that people like. I mean, it's another form of exercise, but it's also focused exercise. You're focused on your
Mindfulness.
and it's being mindful. And then there is mindful meditation, and this is actually turning your mind in on itself to direct relaxation, focus on your breathing, focus on your movements, focus on your emotions, just become more aware of where you are, how your body's feeling right at that moment. And if you don't like where it's at, trying to calm it all down. There's lots of resources that are available online for mindful meditation. There are instructors for mindful meditation. And again, because of a lot of the research that's been coming out with mindfulness and meditation, there's a lot of resources out there specifically for the Parkinson's community. And we actually have some of them on the next slide. Parkinson's UK has an entire section on mindfulness, as does has braingrant.org. And those are the two studies on mindfulness that were recently published in Nature Parkinson's Disease, showing its effects in stressful situations.
There's a lot of free apps that can do some guided meditation that are really nice, and a lot of these are free. So it actually kind of talks to you and walks you through a meditation. There's so many resources out there. And I would say if this is something that you think you might need, get it going now. Like, start looking and investigating these things ahead of time, so you're not trying to scramble figuring this out when you're in the moment. And we can make some of these links available to Casey to share with you if you'd like. That was all we had for now, but I see there's a few questions in the chat, but if there's anything else that you wanted to bring up that's not related to this topic, we're happy to hit it with you guys.
Mhm. So we can go through the chat here. So Mary Beth starts off with a really good one. As she says, she agrees with requesting for the wheelchair assistance, especially with international travel, to help alleviate the stress, and be sure to tip your wheelchair person. That's excellent advice.
It's, I'm actually kind of curious how much you should tip them, but it was something I just recently had to experience and I didn't know what to do. But again, it's another thing that you have to plan ahead. So it's like, if you know that you are going to be taking one of these services, you're going to have a little bit of cash on hand so that you can tip them. And again, just all the planning beforehand can help alleviate a lot of stress in the moment.
Karen brought up that there is a business called Wheelchair Getaways, where you can actually call ahead and rent a wheelchair van. So, if you have difficulties with just even getting to the airport or getting to wherever you need to get in a shorter trip, that might be an option to rent a van that you can just wheelchair into and out of. She also asked, do people with Parkinson's seem to need rescue seal drugs more often in the holidays?
Let me take that one on. So yes, people will often actually try to increase medications just because they can feel the symptoms are getting a bit worse. Sometimes it doesn't work. It just doesn't work quite as well as if it would on another day when you weren't under so much stress. But I think that's a really, really good point, because when I'm saying make sure you've got enough medication, I think it also does mean planning for extra just in case you need it. For a lot of people, like the more you're going, you're probably going to need more medication. It's just it had kind of help keep up with the different schedule that you may be trying to maintain. But no, it's a really good point, Karen. Thank you for bringing that up. I also wanted to say, it sounds like the wheelchair getaways is great. There's got to be other businesses and resources out there that maybe have something similar. So I think that there's a lot of options out there that could be looked into. And I think this last comment is really, again, just be forgiving of yourself and give yourself some patience and grace during this whole period.
Absolutely. Just it's okay to it's okay to be selfish sometimes. It's okay to take the time you need.
Yeah.
And it is okay to say, no, I can't do that, but don't necessarily leave it at that. Say, I can't do that, but I can do this.
The other thing I would say is if it's again, being judicious about it. So being very thoughtful about what you attend, because maybe you don't go to this one party to save the energy and like making sure that you're good for maybe something that happens later or the next day. So again, just knowing where to put your energy, and just everyone's got to be okay with it.
It's okay to not do everything. Do what you can and do what makes you happy.
Yep.
It's supposed to be a happy time.
Yeah. But I think it's followed up with, call and let people know what's going on. I'm sure people are very understanding, especially this time of year. So, any other questions or anything, other topics you wanted to bring up today? Feels weird talking about this before Halloween, but Christmas stuff is already in the store. So
I know, this is your time to ask.
Yep.
Is it okay to go trick-or-treating with Parkinson's disease? Yes, absolutely. Get out there. Go trick-or-treat.
It's good exercise, right?
I love that question.
Only if you wear a costume, though. That's the only way it works. Yeah. Mm. We do not have to belabor this if there's no questions,
Right,
but
anything.
yeah. Mm. Yeah, so Bill brought up the pre-boarding. It is a nice advantage. Like anyone who's with you, if you can get like the attendant, like your whole family will be able to get through. It's not just the pre-boarding; it's like you get through TSA through priority as well. Unless you're me, and I got a very full pat down because I was in a that was got to plan ahead for all that.
And this topic was brought up at a support group recently, so this is very timely.
Mm,
Oh, very nice.
that's the thing is like some of this you would actually need to start exploring or thinking about now to get ready
Right.
for some of this travel. So $5. Okay, I like this. I like this. Thank you, Bill. I wasn't sure what the going rate was anymore. And I'm actually, does it vary from location to location? I don't know. This is all new territory for me. Aha. Sometimes you have 2 pushers for 1 leg of a flight. Yep. That helps. Yeah. I'm just, if anyone else has any tips of things that has worked well for them, I'm very curious to see if anyone else has any suggestions on things that have worked well for them with air travel or ground travel. I think for me, just when it comes to travel, just doing it enough where it becomes more routine. That helps a lot. So I've noticed like the amount of planning I have to do ahead of time is not quite so much, just because I know I have like everything kind of ready to go. That can help too when you kind of get into its own routine. But I think keeping sleep, especially trying to work on that, because sleep will impact everything else and make the stress that's there feel a whole lot worse too. So use a perk with United, let you buy an economy ticket, and you can call they have a back line. Actually, I know that this is who I flew with too. So United has a way of, even in the app, you can actually check a box and tell them like, I can't walk stairs, I can't walk long distances. You can identify these things, and they'll give you extra room and space. Usually they're pretty good about it, and some of the other ones are as well. Thank you, Paul. Much appreciated, and Karen and Lauren.
Yeah,
It
thanks.
was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that
Yep.
presentation was wonderful. And I just, with travel, just like everything else, advocating for yourself, having someone with you to help, speaking up, because there are services that can help you.
Mm. Water helps too. Just make sure you can get to the bathroom. It's just that, and it was actually another comment I had seen is, sometimes people will choose not to fly simply because those bathrooms are so tight. And it just in general, it's hard to move around in the tight rows and everything. And so for some people that may just be too much, and to just try to drive or find another way to get there. Trains are just not great here in the States, but they are a little bit easier to move around. And then pack all meds and carry on, plus all electronics and a full change of clothes. Because, oh man, Norma, that happened to me not that long ago. I was, wearing the same clothes for about 3 days when I was in Copenhagen. That was great. It's not the way to go. So as much as like 1 day's worth of clothes, and then make sure you've got meds, but maybe for a couple of days just in case. And that makes me think too, like, if you find a situation where you are out of meds, like there are ways to talk to the pharmacy. There's ways to make sure that you get covered. It's a pain, but it's entirely doable if you get stuck in some other state. Like it is entirely possible to get your medications, at least a small part of the script.
You got a couple.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And always bring extra medications because your flight may be delayed or canceled.
That was like, I have such bad travel luck right now. Yep.
Just bring extra everything, pack some clothes.
Just
As
get a
people have already said in
Sherpa.
the chat, pack an extra set of clothes in your carry-on, pack all your meds, pack a water
and
bottle,
get
just be
and
prepared.
get a Sherpa. You need a or a pack dog or something to come along with you because it gets to be a lot. Thank
Any
you,
last
everybody.
questions? Thank you, Doctors Van Laar. Thank
Pleasure.
you, everyone, for joining the diner. We'll see you again, in this case, in November, right?
Almost here.
The
Almost
third,
here.
the
Yep.
third Friday.
Yeah.
Usually
Have
Carrie
a
lets me know the date. November 17th.
there you go. Oh, good. That helps me too. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll
Thank
say happy
you.
Halloween. Thanks, everyone.